How to rotate an object so it's flat on the grid. Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you a common problem which you often can have an object rotated and you don't have either you import it that way or you simply rotate it over here and you don't know how to rotate it back. You can no longer use the undo, maybe you exited the application or something like that. I actually want to show you on this object, a more complex object, but before I do this I want to show the main problem and what exists using a basic object. So I'm going to take a basic cube. Now if I rotate this cube, let's say any number, I don't recognize the exact rotation value, and I can obviously always do undo, but what if I exit application, the undo is no longer available. Now if you go for example to the 3D print option, in 3D print there is an option, if you click on the object there's an option, place surface on plate, and if you click over here this is basically rotating it, completely placing on the plate. Now this is the feature that I'm trying to show how you can do it in SelfCAD. Now the thing is it's not so simple in the editor, because over here we know there's only one plate where you can position it. Everything you print must be positioned onto this grid, and this is basically positioning it onto the build plate, the thing over here. When it comes to the 3D modeling application, there is an infinite number of places where you can snap it to. It's not necessarily have to be in a fixed place on the plate. It could be in any side plane or connected to any other object or anything else. So it must be a little bit more complicated. So there's actually two ways how you can do things like that. For now I'm going to undo this just to show you the concept. So the concept way we call this is a tool called magnet, and there's two ways you can use magnet. So let's say for example I'm taking a cone and I'm positioning it over here. Now my idea here is that I want this surface to be on this side of the cube, which is basically the concept that I said. In 3D print you wouldn't do that. You can only position it on the floor. Over here I can position it at any location. So for something simple as this, I can just go to the move tool and turn on the magnet, and as I turn on the magnet you will see the center icon over here on the move gizmos will give you a magnet icon, and this basically is where you click on this one, and then as you move it to something, you see it actually highlight what it's snapping to, and as you can move you can see it's basically positioning it. It's not always working, because if you somehow get it rotated and it's not working, in this case you just have to reposition the gizmo position, what should snap to what, and basically it's fixed. Now this works very good because the gizmo position was easy to locate because it's basically aligned with the local coordinate system. Once you have something more, it's already rotated. So let's say if I'll take this entire thing together and I'm going to rotate this, let's say something like this, and now I want to flatten this entire thing onto the grid. Now this will be quite difficult, simple, because I cannot really position the manual gizmo position, will position it. I cannot put it on an angle positioned over here. It's still going to be flat even if I manage to snap it over here. Now I can go a manual gizmo direction and manually position it. That's one option. So I can basically give it a direction, okay, something like this, and plus a position and kind of give it a position and then start positioning it. I'm actually never tried this if magnet's gonna work. Actually it did work. Okay, the magnet worked. It shifted this because I actually don't know. I didn't realize what it did, but nevertheless, you see, it can work. We can make it work. It's a tedious process. You have to position the direction and the position to make sure you know exactly the surface and the angle what to position. That's one option. There is another option that you can do, which is using snap tool. And snap tool has the same magnet, it's just a different flow how things are working. So if you go in snap tool, there's the same idea, magnet, you can turn it on, but again you have the same problem, like what do you want to snap, where is the pivot. So basically what magnet is doing, it positions the pivot of the object onto the floor. Now when it comes to pivot, we have two things. We have the kind of the center of the volume. In this case we have two objects selected. The pivot would be somewhere in the center of this volume. It's kind of like taking a bounding box, putting it in one packing box, and then taking the center of that. That will be the pivot position. But then it has also a direction, which is we're using the move tool, manual gizmo direction, and you can give it the exact direction, which is also known as local coordinate system. Over here though, I'm going to use a different flow, which is basically just manual origin position, and in this case it actually can just snap it. I can snap the origin position to something, and once it's snapped, it's positioned over here. Now I can go a second click and clicking this on the floor. Okay, so basically the idea here is that this is not working with the same flow as the move tool, where you have a kind of a bounding box. You can see the bounding box I'm talking about. You see this box over here in the floor. This is basically representing the entire width and depth from the combined objects, and the same thing, it's invisible, but the same thing goes when it goes up. It's the entire thing over here surrounding the entire thing. Now the thing over here is that in move tool everything is always positioned in the center, and then you have to have a direction. It's basically kind of like rotating the box, if you think about it that way, which is the direction. In snap tool you just give it a certain position. It's a simple click position. You have a position which you snap to the object. When you click on the gizmo manual origin position, it will actually snap to the surface, just snapping the surface, and then the second click on the grid will do the same we have in the print tool, which will basically snap to the surface. But nevertheless, both of these tools can work. This somehow is rotated. When I move it, this is rotated. Actually, I think this is related to the fact that if you move something down the grid, so let's say I move it here, it will pop up to the grid, and somehow during this rotation process, the way the snap is working, this is somehow being pushed down while this process. I don't really know exactly, like the rotation angle. It's possible the rotation angle takes the opposite direction, and in that case, while it's rotating, this is being pushed down or something like that. Probably this is, I mean, if you have this merged together, this wouldn't happen. It will work, but if you have them separate, then that's maybe something, or maybe some bug that I don't know. But nevertheless, this is something that's can solve probably 99% of the cases, if not all of the cases, with rotation problems. Okay, I hope this is helpful, and please let me know in the comments if you want me to show anything else. I'm sorry, before I go, I said I wanted to do it on a more complex objects. I think I covered everything, but the idea I wanted to show over here is that actually it's much more complicated to handle this, because this is a complex object. So in cases like this, you have to know something that is flat on the surface. So if I would take, for example, let's say this section over here, I know this is position 0, 0, so I know I can trust this. So if I would have the same problem now and rotating it, let's say have it rotated something like this, the move tool wouldn't work in this case, the solution move tool, because there's no way I can get this to be the origin and direction. Maybe yes, actually I shouldn't say it's no way. I can actually draw the direction over here and the position, but it will be much more complicated. I'm dealing with a very tiny plates. It's difficult to draw the direction. You can do it, but it's more difficult. But the snap tool should work without a problem, hopefully. So if I click on the snap tool, I turn on the magnet, I have to manual origin position, so I have to make sure to snap the position to this surface actually. Hopefully it snapped to it, and now I can go down and snap it to the grid, and actually it worked. Okay, so it did position it correctly. So it's the same thing, just the more detailed or more complex object it takes a little more effort to position it, but nevertheless this should solve all of these use cases. Okay, thanks for watching, until next time, bye.